She adjusted her bra at a millionaire's car window and accidentally stole his heart. Chloe Miller was not a morning person. She hated alarms, dreaded Monday meetings, and above all, despised having to be functional while her brain still lived in dreamland. This morning was no exception. Her alarm had gone off 3 times before she finally rolled out of bed, hair tangled, eyes half shut, and her coffee cup nearly the only thing tethering her to life. Wearing a wrinkled white blouse, low heels she hadn't even fully fastened, and carrying a lopsided tote with presentation papers spilling out, Chloe bolted out of her tiny Brooklyn apartment. She had 25 minutes to get to her PR agency in Manhattan, and she was already 10 minutes behind. On the sidewalk, she balanced her phone between her cheek and shoulder, half listening to a voicemail from her boss, while trying to sip from the flimsy paper coffee cup she had grabbed from the corner bodega. Everything was screaming, classic Chloe disaster morning, until she tripped on the curb. It all happened in cinematic slow motion, like a scene out of a comedy where the punchline was your own panic. Her foot caught the edge, her balance betrayed her, and her coffee flew like a caffeinated missile, landing with cruel precision on the sleek black hood of a Porsche. Chloe froze. Oh my God! She had just baptized someone's luxury car with her Monday morning caffeine. She rushed toward the car, hands trembling, eyes darting around in panic. Thankfully, no one seemed to notice. New York City rarely stopped for small-scale chaos. The car was spotless, brand new, not a scratch, except now it had a streak of dark coffee streaming down the front windshield. Chloe exhaled shakily and reached for some napkins, leaning in to wipe it off. Just as she noticed something, the driver's side window was slightly lowered, and from inside a cool breeze was flowing out. Not the morning air, but air conditioning. Chloe straightened abruptly. Her heart stopped. Someone was inside the car, and they had just witnessed the most catastrophic coffee spill of her entire life. Chloe didn't dare breathe. She stood frozen beside the car, half ready to bolt, half hoping she could melt into the sidewalk and disappear. The window rolled down a few more inches, and as a gust of cool air hit her face, her knees wobbled, partly from embarrassment, partly because a face emerged from the shadows inside. The man sitting there had the kind of presence that didn't need a spotlight, calm, composed, and quietly magnetic, as if the world slowed down just a little around him. Dark brown hair, slightly tousled in that deliberate kind of way. Piercing blue eyes, cool but curious. He wore a silver-gray shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his gaze was so direct it nearly sent Chloe sprinting back to Brooklyn. Then he smiled. A real smile. Not angry, not condescending, just amused, almost entertained. "Is that your usual way of saying good morning?" he asked, voice deep and calm, laced with humor. Chloe's jaw dropped. Half her brain freaked out over the fact that he called her you, like they were already acquaintances. The other half screamed, "Say something, anything. I'm so sorry, I didn't see you in the car. I was just... the coffee. And my chest. My bra. I was fixing it in your window. But I didn't know anyone was inside," she stammered, glitching like a broken chatbot, each word more mortifying than the last. The man let out a low, genuine laugh. Not mocking, just thoroughly entertained. "Relax," he said gently. "I'm not going to sue you, just a bit surprised, that's all." "Oh my God," Chloe groaned, eyes shut tight. "This is officially the worst morning in American history." "I'm not so sure," he said with a slight head tilt and a half smile. "I'm Ethan, and you are?" "Chloe Miller," she replied, then immediately regretted it. She should have given a fake name, changed her number, and started a new life in Alaska. Ethan nodded as if mentally noting it down. "Nice to meet you, Chloe. Your coffee certainly packs a punch." She let out a nervous laugh, heart pounding. Glancing at her watch, she realized she had only 10 minutes left to make it to the office. She stepped back awkwardly. I have to go. Really sorry again. Truly." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Where do you work?" "PR agency, 6 blocks that way. I'm already late." He paused for a second. Then, to her utter disbelief, he reached over and opened the passenger door. "Then let me give you a ride. The least I can do is buy you a new coffee." Chloe couldn't quite remember what she said during the drive to her office. Probably a string of awkward small talk, a few strained chuckles, and countless apologies. Ethan drove like someone who knew every turn in Manhattan, calm, smooth, and slightly amused by her ongoing state of mild panic. When the car stopped in front of the building where her PR agency was located, Chloe practically jumped out of her seat. "Thank you so much, and sorry again for everything." Ethan gave a small laugh. "No worries, thanks for making my morning less boring." Chloe dashed into the lobby, heart pounding like she had just survived a supernatural accident. There was no time to process anything. The presentation she'd been preparing for 2 weeks was waiting. Today's client was a well-known tech recycling corporation seeking a fresh media campaign for their nationwide sustainability launch. If Chloe's agency won this account, it would be their biggest deal of the year. She rushed into the conference room at 9:02 a.m. Not bad considering she almost got sued for vehicular caffeine assault. Carlos, her boss, gave her a warning glance but said nothing. Sitting at the head of the table was Monica Lane, the firm's executive director, next to a sharply dressed man in a gray suit, silently scribbling on his iPad. Chloe gave a quick nod to the room, hooked up her laptop, and launched into her pitch. To her surprise, the words flowed effortlessly. She presented the Human Earth campaign, centered on building emotional connections between sustainable technology and real people, rather than just pushing product features. Monica's face remained unreadable throughout, occasionally glancing at the man beside her, who hadn't uttered a single word. When Chloe finished, silence fell across the room. Monica finally broke it. "Thank you, Chloe. The concept is different." "Different in a good way, or?" Chloe asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Too early to say," Monica replied curtly. "But noted." She then turned to the man next to her. "Ethan, thoughts?" Chloe turned, and in that instant, her stomach dropped. The man looked up from his iPad. Ethan. Ethan from the Porsche, from the coffee-spattered windshield, from the smirk that was now unmistakably forming on his lips. He looked up, and the smile was unmistakable. That same tilt of the head, that maddening glint in his eyes. "Well," he said, with just the right amount of mischief, "she certainly knows how to make an entrance and tell a damn good story." Chloe nearly dropped the presentation remote. She blinked once, twice. No mistake. He wasn't just the guy whose car she'd baptized with caffeine. He was the CEO of the company she was desperately trying to impress. The air in the conference room felt colder than the AC setting. After Ethan's comment, no one added anything. Monica glanced at him, her eyes masking something unreadable. She nodded once, briskly gathering her notes. "We'll consider it," she said curtly, "but I want to be clear. This campaign, while creative, leans too heavily on emotional appeal. Consumers don't want to be moved. They want reasons to buy." The words landed like a paper cut across Chloe's heart. She gave a small nod, forcing a polite smile, though inside something wilted. "Thank you for the opportunity," she replied, her voice barely steady. She left the conference room with Carlos at her side. Neither of them spoke on the way to the elevator. Once inside, Carlos let out a long sigh. "You did well, Chloe. Maybe just a bit too much heart." Chloe didn't answer. She simply nodded. But beneath the stillness, something refused to die. A quiet, defiant flame that still believed in the story she told. She believed in that campaign. She believed in storytelling that touched people. Effectiveness wasn't always about charts and graphs. Sometimes it was about what reached the heart and stayed there. And if they couldn't see that yet, she'd find a way to make them see it. Chloe sat motionless at her desk, tucked into the corner of her agency's open floor plan. Her laptop screen glowed in front of her, but none of the words registered anymore. The Human Earth presentation, the brainchild she had poured 2 weeks into crafting, refining, and believing in, now rested in a silent folder labeled Failed Pitches. Carlos had already sent a polite thank you email to the client, gently apologizing that their direction may not align. Monica Lane hadn't replied, and Ethan, the man who could make her pulse race with a simple tilt of his head, had vanished as if he'd never existed. But something inside Chloe wasn't ready to let go. A quiet voice deep within refused to let the story end here. Not when she knew the idea had weight. Not when Ethan had been the only one in that room who truly got what she was trying to say. So after 3 hours of typing, deleting, rewriting, and doubting, Chloe finally hit send. To EthanEccledwellIndustries.com. Subject: about this morning's presentation. The message wasn't long and it wasn't overly polished. She didn't defend the presentation. She simply explained why she believed in it. Chloe wrote in her own voice, not in polished marketing speak, not filtered through corporate layers, but raw and real. She didn't know if what she was doing was brave or just plain foolish. But she did know one thing: if she said nothing, she'd regret it. The next day, while pouring herself coffee in the office kitchen, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Do you have time this afternoon? I think we should talk in person. Ethan Caldwell." Chloe froze. Coffee spilled onto her hand, and she didn't even feel it. Ethan's office sat on the top floor of a glass tower overlooking the Hudson River. Elegant, but understated. He was already waiting when she arrived. No assistants, no boardrooms, just a conversation between two people. "Thanks for your email," he said, pouring her a cup of tea. Not many people dare send a direct note to the CEO after a poorly received pitch. Chloe smiled, feeling for the first time slightly less nervous. She told him about her belief in emotional storytelling, about how brands that listen outlast the ones that only talk. Ethan listened without interruption. When she finished, he gave a small nod and smiled. "Maybe I missed something in that meeting," he said softly, "but I don't want to miss it again." "Would you like a second shot?" Ethan asked. The words echoed in the quiet office like a breath of fresh air. Chloe looked up, unsure if she'd heard him correctly. "You mean?" Ethan leaned casually against the edge of his desk, tea in hand, eyes steady on her. "I mean another chance. A smaller project. Not a nationwide campaign, but enough to test your perspective." Chloe blinked. "And where would I do this?" "Here," he said simply. "At my company, with me as your direct contact. No middleman, no Monica Lane, no Carlos, just her and Ethan." Chloe felt heat rise in her chest, not from fear, but from a heady mix of uncertainty and excitement. "What kind of project?" she asked. Ethan pulled a slim folder from his desk and slid it across the table. "We're about to launch a line of smart home water purifiers made from recycled materials. Compact, efficient, but we haven't figured out how to tell the story. I want the launch to feel human. That's where you come in." Chloe flipped through the brief, her mind already whirring. She could see the visuals, hear the tone, imagine the user experiences they could create. "Is there a deadline?" she asked, almost challenging herself. Ethan smirked. 3 weeks, modest budget, but you'll have full creative control." She met his gaze. "And if it fails? Then I take the fall," he said without hesitation. "No one else will touch it." Chloe paused. She thought about her current job, the rigid processes, the filtered feedback, the creativity trimmed to fit a client's brand direction. Then she thought about Ethan's eyes, clear, direct, not making promises, but offering something honest. "Okay," she nodded. "I'm in." 3 days later, Chloe walked out of her old agency with a cardboard box of personal items and a resignation letter that had been signed surprisingly quickly. On her first day at the new office, a small but sunlit workspace with a view of the Brooklyn Bridge, she received her first email from Ethan. Just 3 words. "Shall we begin?" Chloe smiled. A real smile. She didn't know what was coming next. But this time, she wasn't afraid. 3 weeks passed faster than Chloe expected. From tense early meetings to late-night brainstorming sessions, she and Ethan gradually found a rhythm, one of quiet understanding that didn't need many words. And from that rhythm, something else began to grow. Something that stretched quietly beyond the boundaries of work. Ethan wasn't like any boss Chloe had ever worked with. He didn't command. He asked. He listened. He never told her what she should do. Instead, he'd ask, "What do you think?" That kind of respect made Chloe feel truly seen, not just as an employee, but as a creator. One evening, after finalizing the storyboard for the launch video, they stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker on the surface of the Hudson River. Chloe asked quietly, "Do you ever get tired Of being the one in charge? Ethan hesitated. Always. She turned to look at him. My dad passed suddenly when I had just turned 30. This company was his legacy, and I only knew I didn't want to run it the old way. But shifting course isn't easy. People think I'm soft because I care about the environment, because I want the brand to have a soul. They think it's all show. Chloe went still. I get it, she said. They've told me that too, that my ideas are too emotional, not effective. But emotions are what make people remember a brand, not numbers. Ethan looked at her, his gaze softening. Thank you for reminding me of that. That weekend, they visited a local environmental learning center for kids, a location Chloe had suggested for filming part of the launch video. There, Chloe met Lily, Ethan's 9-year-old niece, bubbly, sharp, and deeply passionate about saving the planet. Uncle Ethan said, "You're the first person who ever kept him awake during a presentation," Lily whispered to Chloe as they watched a miniature recycling model. Chloe laughed, feeling her heart melt just a little more. From a short distance, Ethan watched them, a quiet smile on his lips like he was holding on to a thought he wasn't ready to say out loud. Lily quickly became an essential part of the pre-production meetings. She didn't just bring lighthearted energy, she brought insights that made even the adults fall silent and think. Grown-ups always talk about the environment like it's something far away, Lily said during one meeting. But I think if people saw it starting in their own homes, at the dinner table, at the sink, they'd care more. Chloe was struck by that sentence. Sometimes the most powerful truths come from the smallest voices. From that day forward, Lily was a constant presence beside Chloe, during location scouting, photo selection, even suggesting a few camera angles. Ethan stayed in the background, never interfering, but every time his eyes landed on Chloe and Lily huddled together in discussion, a soft, quiet smile found his face. To Chloe, Lily became a gentle pause in the chaos, a living, breathing reminder of why she chose this path in the first place, to communicate values that matter, through stories that reach the human heart. One evening, as Chloe packed up to leave the office, Lily ran up and hugged her waist. I wish you were my cousin, Lily whispered, her eyes sparkling. Chloe knelt down, beaming. And I wish I'd met you sooner. Ethan stood by the doorway, watching the entire moment, saying nothing, but holding in his eyes something difficult to hide. A few days later, as the campaign neared its production phase, Chloe received a message from Ethan. Just watched your demo for the 3rd time. Each time I believe even more in what you're doing. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she just stared at the message, and inside her, something quietly bloomed. Not just a career, not just a successful project, but something more. And then, the day of the event arrived, sooner than anyone expected. The event was scheduled on a sunny Saturday morning, the air tinged with the scent of freshly cut grass and a gentle mist rising from the Hudson River. Chloe had designed the entire program as an emotional journey, not just a product launch. To her, this wasn't about selling a water purifier. It was about telling a story of connection, of the planet, and of human kindness. The venue was divided into several interactive zones, an exhibit showcasing recycled materials, a kids' corner with green model houses, and the main stage, built entirely from eco-friendly materials. Chloe chose not to use massive LED screens or flashy light effects. Instead, she opted for soft, warm lighting and gentle acoustic background music, so everything would unfold like a conversation between friends, not a corporate promo. Guests began arriving at 9 a.m. Chloe stood to one side, observing every reaction, every glance. Young families, environmental students, a few skeptical investors, tech journalists, even elderly couples with grandchildren. Each attendee had their own reason for being there, but Chloe hoped they would all leave with the same thing, feeling. Ethan arrived shortly after, dressed in a simple white shirt, no suit, no tie, just himself. When their eyes met through the garden, glowing in morning light, he smiled and nodded. You've created something truly different, he said quietly, standing beside her before the event began. Chloe responded softly, I didn't do it alone. And then, the program began. No professional MC, no flashy opening. Ethan was the first to speak, And to everyone's surprise, he left his prepared speech behind. He stepped onto the stage, paused for a moment, and began to speak. Not from notes, not from a screen, but from within. He talked about taking over the company before he was ready, about boardroom pressure, about fear of failure. He shared how, while everyone pushed the company to pursue high-end tech and maximum efficiency, he just wanted to keep the human part in the brand. I used to think I had to be right. Now I just want to be honest, and he said, his voice calm but clear. The entire garden fell silent. Not a phone buzz, not a whisper. Everyone listened, with full attention and respect. Right after Ethan came the person no one expected to steal everyone's heart. Lily. Dressed in a green dress, clutching a handwritten speech in crayon, she walked slowly to the stage. At first, her voice trembled, her eyes darting nervously through the crowd in search of Chloe. But when she saw the warm, encouraging look from the woman she so admired, Lily straightened up and began. She didn't talk about products or technology. She spoke about what a child sees in the world around her. Streams without fish, meadows without butterflies, and ended with a line that left over 200 adults speechless. I don't know how it all works, but I do know this. If we wait, there might not be a tomorrow for kids like me. For a heartbeat, the garden stood frozen. Then, like a tide bursting through silence, came the kind of applause that didn't just clap, but carried something deeper. Long, deep, genuine. Chloe stood frozen, her hands clasped tightly, eyes misty. Ethan, near the stage, bowed slightly toward Lily, as if she had just taught him something more valuable than any executive meeting ever had. The rest of the event flowed better than anyone expected. The interactive zones were packed, the video team worked nonstop, and guests lingered long past schedule just to rewatch Lily's speech on the replay screen. By the afternoon, her clip had spread across social media, and by evening, Lily was trending on Twitter. The press hailed the campaign as a rare emotional breakthrough in an era of cold technology. Investors sent in requests to meet the following week. Orders for the water purifier skyrocketed within the first 24 hours. And Ethan, the CEO once mocked for being too sentimental for business, was now seen as a new kind of leader, one who listens. That evening, after the venue had nearly been cleared out, Chloe sat alone on a stone bench under the trees. A breeze from the river played with her hair. Ethan walked over and gently placed a light jacket around her shoulders without saying a word. After a moment, he sat down beside her. They didn't speak right away, just sat there, watching the stage where everything had unfolded. "You okay?" he asked. Chloe nodded, eyes still on the soft lights that were slowly dimming. "I used to think this was just a project," she whispered. "But now I know. It's something that will stay." Ethan was silent for a few seconds, then turned to her, his eyes glowing under the golden light of dusk. "So, what if we don't stop here?" Chloe turned to him, her expression softened. After a moment, she smiled, a smile full of certainty. "I don't want to stop. But every resounding success comes with its own consequences. And this event, no matter how beautiful, was no exception." 3 days after the launch, when the applause had barely faded, Ethan was invited to a private discussion with the board of directors. The meeting took place in the glass-walled conference room on the 38th floor, where multi-million-dollar decisions were made. But this time it wasn't about profit margins or revenue reports. It was about Chloe. Monica Lane was the first to speak. "Ethan, the event was well received, yes, but we've observed an excessive degree of familiarity between you and the external communications consultant. Some investors have expressed concern." Ethan leaned back in his chair, fingers interlaced. He didn't respond right away. He knew exactly what was happening. The suspicious glances, the whispered conversations behind closed doors, the questions about professionalism, cleverly disguised as acting in the company's best interest. "You're referring to my relationship with Chloe?" he asked directly, refusing to dance around it. "We're not making assumptions," Monica replied evenly, "but the media is beginning to ask questions. And as CEO, you need to maintain a professional distance from outside partners to prevent any misunderstanding that could affect the company's image." Ethan gave a small nod. He didn't argue, but something behind his eyes hardened. Not anger, but conviction that had finally decided not to stay silent. Meanwhile, Chloe was facing a storm of her own. Back at her old agency, the same colleagues who had cheered her on when Lily's video went viral were now whispering behind her back. An internal meeting was called, and for the first time, Chloe was not the subject of admiration, but of scrutiny. "Chloe," the associate director began, "there are rumors that you are involved personally with the client. If that's true, do you think you should remove yourself from the campaign for transparency's sake?" The question came from someone who had never liked the human earth idea to begin with. Chloe looked around the room, the eyes on her, some sympathetic, most merely curious. "We're not accusing you," the woman added. "We just need to be sure nothing crossed the line." Chloe sat up straighter, her voice calm. "I've always handled my work with professionalism. What we achieved wasn't the result of a personal relationship. It came from believing in something real." No one responded, and silence in that moment meant isolation. That afternoon, Ethan stood alone before the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city skyline. On one side was a safe choice: listen to the board, protect the company's image, quietly remove Chloe from any future involvement. On the other was the vision he was starting to believe in, where a brand didn't just sell products but evoked feeling, and the woman at the heart of that vision was now under fire. He thought back to the evening after the event, that quiet moment when Chloe had said she didn't want to stop. Neither did he. But continuing now meant facing consequences. A soft knock on the door pulled him back. His assistant walked in, handing him a draft of a public statement from the PR team. Caldwell Industries affirms the independence of its external partnerships and is committed to ensuring that emotions do not influence strategic decisions. Ethan held the press release in his hands, his eyes pausing on the final sentence. He knew. The moment had come to choose. Ethan stood still, the press release in hand, the words blurring before his eyes. Outside the glass windows it had started to rain, a quiet kind of rain, thin as silk, just enough to blur the city skyline. He knew that if he said nothing, things would settle. The board would be satisfied, the media would lose interest, and Chloe would quietly disappear from everything he was trying to build. But if he spoke up, he could lose a lot: his position, the board's trust, even the confidence of those who had always wanted him to play it safe. He looked again at the final line of the draft. "Emotions should not influence strategic decisions." He repeated it silently. "Emotions should not influence," then slowly folded the paper. No one else could give this brand a heart like she did. And if that heart was lost, then all the success, no matter the numbers, would be nothing more than a hollow shell. He took a deep breath and set the press release down on the desk. Then he walked out of the room. It was still drizzling when Chloe received the call from Ethan. "Can I see you?" he asked. "In person, not over email or text." Chloe hesitated for a moment. She was still untangling herself from the web of public scrutiny and private doubt. But she agreed. Not because she was ready, but because she knew some things couldn't be postponed forever. They met at the Riverside Cafe, the same one they had visited while scouting locations for the product launch video. Ethan had arrived early, sitting in the far corner, hands wrapped around a cup of tea he hadn't touched. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice tired, though something behind his eyes still held a quiet light. No small talk, no pleasantries. Ethan got straight to the point. "I want to offer you a full-time position at Caldwell," he said, "as creative director. I want to launch a new division, one where communication isn't just about marketing, but storytelling, connection, and creating real value. And I want you to lead it." Chloe looked up, momentarily stunned. She hadn't expected the offer to come so soon, or be so big. "I've never managed a team before," she said softly. "I'm not looking for the person with the fanciest resume," Ethan replied. "I'm looking for someone who believes in emotion, when an entire boardroom won't." Chloe fell silent. She thought of her current role: stable job, decent salary, colleagues who weren't close but safe. Then she thought of the nights she and Ethan stayed up until 2 a.m. revising storyboards, yet still felt like they were doing something right. She thought of Lily. Of that moment, the entire room burst into applause after her speech, and something inside her shifted. But Ethan, she said slowly. If I accept, everything changes. Work and feelings. They don't always walk the same path. I don't want to be seen as someone who's here because of a relationship instead of ability. Ethan nodded. I understand, and I wouldn't expect anything less than clear boundaries, at least for now. She looked at him and saw sincerity that wasn't trying to hide itself. No pressure, no expectations. Chloe wrapped her fingers around her coffee cup. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from standing at the edge of something bigger than a job offer. Then I accept, she said, but I need you to respect this boundary, Ethan. Work is work. Everything else comes later. Nam. He didn't respond immediately. He simply smiled and nodded once. I'll wait. No rush. Anything worth waiting for is never a waste. Chloe looked out the cafe window. The rain had stopped. Droplets still clung to the table outside, shimmering in the sunlight that had just begun to break through the clouds. And inside her, something else was beginning to break through too. Not certainty, but something real. Things seemed to fall back into place, though it was a new kind of place, unfamiliar yet more real. Chloe was no longer fighting to claim her space. She was now steadily building a new voice in the industry. Ethan, once a quiet CEO, had become the face of his brand's transformation. Not through flashy strategies, but through a belief in authentic emotion. What Chloe didn't know was that Ethan had been preparing a surprise. One morning, Lily appeared at her desk with a mischievous grin. Miss Chloe, someone wants to see you in the back garden. It's a secret, okay? Don't tell anyone. Chloe raised an eyebrow, surprised. The back garden, their very first scouting location for the Human Earth campaign, hadn't been used for anything in months. It was quiet, private, and filled with memories. When she stepped inside, she saw Ethan standing in the middle of the garden, holding up a whiteboard, the same kind they once used for brainstorming. On it, written in black marker, was a single line. If you're willing to keep walking with me, not just for the campaign. She froze. Lily, now stepping out from behind a bush, walked over with a small box in her hand. She placed it in Chloe's palm and ran off, like a little messenger who'd completed her secret mission. Chloe opened the box. A simple, elegant ring, not flashy, not loud, but enough to blur her vision with tears. Ethan stepped closer, his voice calm as always, but his eyes couldn't hide the nervous anticipation. No big stage, no candles or fireworks, or just the place where we started, and hopefully, where we'll begin again. Chloe laughed through her tears. I think we already began with that coffee spill, and I've never thanked you enough for that day, Ethan whispered. She nodded. Then this time, I say yes, and I mean it, with my whole heart. The wedding came not long after, a warm, intimate ceremony lit by soft string lights with a few close friends, and Lily proudly scattering flower petals down the aisle. Their careers continued to flourish. The human-centered communications division, led by Chloe, became a symbol of storytelling done right. Stories not just shared, but believed in, remembered. And on one crisp autumn evening, as the two sat side by side sipping tea instead of wine, Chloe leaned over and said softly, sometimes the wrong coffee spill finds the right hands, and when it does, it changes everything.